I started working as a carpenter's apprentice right after graduating from junior high school at the age of 16. I hated studying, but was good with my hands. I wanted to pursue a job where I could create something, so I became an apprentice to a carpenter who was an acquaintance of my father. I am still grateful to my parents who understand me and agreed with it. With the desire to repay them, I diligently committed myself to learn the work. Surrounded by skilled laborers who were quicker with their hands than their mouths, I grew and became a well-known carpenter in the industry by the time I reached 30. I received jobs directly from large construction companies, and my reputation spread, leading to more significant projects. I got married and had a daughter, and my work was going well. I believe that was the best time of my life. However, when I was 50 years old, there was a small accident at the site. The materials I had piled up collapsed. I managed to save my coworker, Tom, who was about to be crushed, but in the process, I severely injured my right shoulder, which resulted in a lasting disability in my right hand. I could still manage daily life fairly well, but I couldn't swing a hammer anymore. Without saying anything to anyone, I left the carpentry world. I thought it would be tough for Tom if I revealed the reason for quitting. I joined a small construction crew where I didn't know anyone, and now I'm doing odd jobs at different work sites. Fortunately, my daughter was already independent as a working adult, and my wife had a job, so I didn't cause any trouble for my family. After I helped Tom, my wife laughed and said, "That's so like you," and my daughter looked at me with a mix of disbelief and amusement, saying, "Seriously, Dad, you're too kind." But neither of them blamed me. Blessed with a warm family, I truly felt happy. In the field of construction work, my role as a laborer is mainly supportive. My main tasks are carrying materials and cleaning. I also perform tasks requested by laborers, supporting them almost like a devoted wife. To be honest, my position on the site is nothing significant. However, because of that, the work was easy, and I often moved to different sites, so I was able to enjoy it in my own way without encountering carpenters I know. I am currently working at the Jones Construction Company. I used to get a lot of work from this construction company in the past. While working, I nostalgically thought about my past days of working with this construction company. Then, one day, there was a small accident. It was the day for material delivery, but the site supervisor, Mr. Brown, was absent. The truck driver was at a loss as to where to place the delivered materials. I thought it might be intrusive, but I gave instructions to the driver and helped carry the materials into the site. The driver was happy and left, but when Supervisor Brown returned to the site, he scolded me severely.
"You're just a laborer. Why the hell are you doing things? You're not entitled to do these things."
A young supervisor who appeared to be in his 20s nudged my head. Although I was annoyed, I held back and apologized. "I'm sorry. No one was here, so."
Even so, why are you giving instructions? A laborer like you doesn't know anything about the site's workflow, so don't do unnecessary things.
"Yes, I'm sorry."
Jesus Christ. A laborer should just shut up and clean. Worthless trash like you, don't interfere with my work, acting like you're in the high position.
At that remark, the foreman of the laborers finally changed his expression and confronted the supervisor.
"What the heck is this? It's mostly your fault for being absent. If it weren't for Bob, the truck driver couldn't have gone to the next job."
When the supervisor said, "What did you say?" and was about to grab the chief by the collar, another foreman of iron workers intervened, saying, "That's enough," and stepped between the two.
He handled the material delivery correctly. It's your fault for not being here when the truck arrived. Instead of complaining, how about saying thank you to him?
Quietly spoken, the supervisor Brown glared at me and went away without saying anything. The foreman of the ironworkers patted my back. "Don't worry, it's a typical thing for a young supervisor. "You didn't do anything wrong, thanks." He said that and went back to work. I also nodded slightly and went back to work with the chief. However, from that day on, Supervisor Brown started finding fault with me for various things. He would call me out for trivial matters and make snide remarks. To make matters worse, I was even made to clean the restroom at the site. I was definitely getting annoyed, but since I was about to move from this site soon, I endured it. Every day was a gloomy day, but I didn't want to worry my wife, so I kept going to work without taking a break. Then one day, I felt unwell since morning, and my head was spinning. When I measured my temperature, it was slightly over 99 degrees. I thought about taking a day off, but today was the day for loading, and I really didn't want to miss it.
Are you okay? You look pale.
My wife Kate peered at my face with concern, but I smiled and replied, "I'm fine. I'll be done with work today. I'll take a day off tomorrow." After finishing my coffee, I got up and packed the lunchbox Kate had made for me into my backpack and left the house. When I arrived at the site, there were a large number of items for loading. I carefully carried them, but around noon, my fever started to rise and my legs became unsteady.
Bob, what's wrong?
The foreman hurriedly supported me as I stumbled. But I ended up dropping the items I was carrying.
Your face is all red. Don't you have a fever?
The foreman said with concern, peering at my face, and at that moment, Supervisor Brown came running, saying, "What are you doing?" He glared at the fallen items and sneered, "Can't you even carry a single item properly? You're useless."
Mr. Brown, Bob may have a fever. Can I let him go home?
The foreman said, but Supervisor Brown said no and glared at me.
A damn construction worker who's useless for anything else, and today is the only day he may be able to do some work. You have a fever on a day like this. Can't you even manage your health? You're such a jerk and lowlife.
The usual sarcastic remarks began, but I didn't have the energy to retort. My head was spinning, and I felt nauseous.
Hurry up and carry it. Don't dawdle.
I was tapped on the shoulder, and I almost fell backwards. At that moment, I heard a shouting voice, saying, "Stop it." "What did you say?" said the supervisor, and he turned around. There, I spotted a familiar figure. It was Tom Smith, my former colleague.
"What the hell did you say? Who do you think you're talking to?"
Tom walked towards us boldly and grabbed Supervisor Brown by the collar.
Tom, why are you here?
Supervisor Brown turned pale. Tom let go of the director's collar with a forceful push after landing a punch on his head.
"Just shut up, because your planning is so messed up and we're falling behind schedule. The president told me to go help you."
Tom spat out his words and then looked at me.
"Hey, Bob, long time no see."
He bowed his head. I looked at my old comrade. "It's been a while. I've heard you are the head of the main team directly run by the construction company. That's quite something." The main team is a group directly employed by the construction company. At the construction site, there are various professionals who gather, but they all work as subcontractors receiving jobs from the construction company. The main team, however, is not a subcontractor but directly employed by the construction company. Young Supervisor Brown wouldn't stand a chance against someone like Tom. Tom's face turned teary as he shook his head.
"I owe it to you, Bob, that I can now work like this. This is all thanks to you. I didn't know you quit being a carpenter and became a construction worker. Why didn't you tell me?"
I didn't know how to respond. The supervisor looked at us with a puzzled expression. Tom turned to the supervisor and said, "You know, Bob is my mentor and my savior. He was a famous carpenter in our industry, to the point where everyone knows his name. He was even chosen to work for Jones Construction, and yet, you dare to speak ill of him." Tom struck the director's head with his fist once again. With wide-open eyes in astonishment, the supervisor looked at me.
"I'll remind this guy,"
he said, and I looked at the supervisor. It's true that construction work might be considered the lowest level job on the site, but you know, people from various professions are coordinating and cooperating with each other here in order to build a structure. Construction workers are essential in supporting the site, although their works are not visible. Mr. Brown, if you plan on continuing this line of work, you'll have to change your mindset from the ground up, otherwise, laborers won't follow you. Finally able to express some of what I wanted to say, I stared at the supervisor, who was looking down. Tom said, with a stern tone, "You're such a buster, say more."
Bob has done a lot of work for this construction company. Everybody in higher positions knows about him. I'll make sure to report everything about you. Be prepared. Bob is right. You can't disrespect the people who actually work on the site. Otherwise, we can't do a good work. If the laborers don't do their jobs, we can't meet the deadlines at all.
As a final blow, the supervisor drooped his shoulders dejectedly. In a small voice, barely audible, he said, "I'm sorry." He kept staring at his feet. "Bob," Tom called me, looking puzzled.
Did you quit being a carpenter because of me? How can I make it up to you?
I laughed at his words. "Come on, it's not your fault, Tom. I chose to leave carpentry and become a construction worker by my own choice. I'm surrounded by good colleagues, and I'm enjoying it." I replied, and Tom showed signs of wanting to say something, but he just smiled and said, "I see. Anyway, Bob, go home for today. Take care of yourself, all right? Will you meet me again?" I said, "Thank you, I'll do that. Let's meet again." Tom smiled happily, gave the supervisor a strong pat on the back, and left. Thanks to a good night's sleep, my fever went down, and I recovered. I went to the construction site as usual and apologized to the foreman for leaving early yesterday. He said, "Don't push yourself." After the morning meeting, as I was about to go to my station, someone called out, "Bob." When I turned around, Black, the department manager at Jones Construction, was standing there.
"Long time no see,"
he said, nodding his head slightly towards me. We had many meetings together in the past. His calm way of speaking hadn't changed.
"I heard about yesterday's incident from Tom, the foreman. I had no idea that you were working as a subcontractor construction worker on our site. You're not planning to go back to being a carpenter?"
I nodded in reply to his questions. "As you know, I can't swing a hammer with this right hand. For now, I'm taking it easy." I answered, and Black said, "I see." And then he said, "Actually, the president asked me to ask you for a favor. Can you listen to it?" Me, what is it?
"Yes. Currently, our construction company is dealing with several sites, but all of them tend to be delayed. As you know, Bob, there seems to be a lack of communication between the supervisors and the laborers. Well, the interpersonal relationships are not going well."
Upon hearing that, Black scratched his head. I couldn't help but chuckle. It wasn't just Brown, but the friction between the university-educated supervisors who work as regular employees of the construction company and the self-taught laborers has always been a long-standing issue.
So, there has been a discussion about appointing someone as a supervisor on site, separate from the main supervisor. We have been looking for someone who can facilitate smooth communication with the laborers, especially in the case of young supervisors. The president is very enthusiastic about entrusting this role to you, Bob. What do you think? We will provide a suitable position for you as our regular employee. Can you accept it?
I was taken aback by suddenly being asked such a thing. Black continued,
"This is something that can only be entrusted to someone who fully understands the site and the laborers. Of course, we also value personal qualities. We want to ask for your help in nurturing young supervisors. If the site environment improves, it will be easier for the laborers to work. In that case, there will be no one like you, Bob, who will have an unpleasant experience like this time. With a pleasant working environment, work progresses smoothly and there are no delays in the schedule.
His words were passionate, and it moved my heart. I think Tom talked to the construction company for my sake, but I could feel that Black genuinely needed me. "Can I have some time to think about it?" I said, and Black responded with a firm nod, saying, "Of course."
We look forward to your favorable response. By the way, as for Brown, he has expressed a desire to take a break from the site for a while. He wants to start over from scratch. It's the first time I've seen him so serious since he joined the company. Right now, he's assisting on a site with an experienced supervisor.
"I see. I hope he becomes a good supervisor." I said that sincerely. He was an arrogant and unpleasant guy, but I would be happy if he could start fresh after this incident.
I hope so, too. Well then, see you later.
With that, Black left. I stood there for a while, lost in thought, when someone tapped my shoulder.
Go for it, Bob. You're more than just a construction worker here. If someone like you could take charge of the site, there would be fewer people having a hard time.
It was the foreman of the construction workers who said that. It seemed like he had overheard our conversation just now.
We construction workers are looking forward to having a site where we're not looked down upon. We're counting on you,
he said with a smile, and I nodded slightly. Ever since my injury, I had been carrying a feeling of giving up on life, but maybe it wouldn't be so bad to make a fresh start here. "Let's give it a try," I murmured, and the foreman happily patted my back, saying, "That's the spirit."